Good evening. I'd like to call to order the August meeting of the Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees. And we're going to go around and introduce ourselves and share a book if you wish to share. So Kathy, why don't we start with you?
Kathy Loser, and I just picked up a small book called Before the Coffee Gets Cold. It's about a cafe in Tokyo where you can time travel.
Sounds good. Sounds fun. I'm Jamie Burkhart, and I just picked up Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
I'm Chris Harrison, and I am reading The Road Back to You. It's about Enneagrams. And I'm also listening to Charlie Thorne and The Curse of Cleopatra. I'm kind of really hooked on those as far as audiobooks. They're great to listen to.
I'm Greer Carson. I'm reading an old one, Dragons of Eden by Carl Sagan from 1977, which still, after all our advances in psychology and neuroscience, has remarkable insights into the possible evolution of human intelligence. And my kids pretty much live in Roblox anymore, so we don't have a current family video game, but the Pac-Man World remake for the current generation consoles comes out next Friday, and that's all we're going to do.
My name is Kari Essery, and I'm reading the Book of Lost Swords by Hagen, I don't know, some sci-fi writer.
All right, we'll begin this evening with the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July board meeting, the monthly financial report, the monthly bills for payment, the personnel report, and the 2022 board meeting calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments about the consent agenda items? Okay. All in favor of approving the consent agenda items signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, next we will have the Director's Monthly Report from Greer.
Okay, so a couple of highlights to share. We held a unique program hosted by our Adult Services Librarian and local history expert, Christine Friesel, on Kirkwood Avenue circa 1967, and this block in particular where this building sits. We had great attendance and a great discussion on what was formerly known then as Doctor's Row, so that was a very unique program. We had over 2,200 kids enrolled in this summer's summer reading program for kids. And that's over twice the total number of participants from 2021, and it has us back on track for our pre-pandemic levels of participation. We also had an astounding 404 teens register for summer reading this year. There are some wonderful anecdotes in the director's report from our Monroe County Correctional Center services, as well as our partnership with New Life. And we are honored and excited to once again be the recipient of the city's Digital Equity Grant. This year, our plan is to use this grant to further expand our popular circulating iPad collection. And as always, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm just curious if you think there's any correlation in the summer reading program to going back to paper.
I know some folks who would say yes. We talked about this quite a bit, that there's some very clear benefits to having something like a tangible piece to the summer reading program, and so we don't know for certain, but
Will we continue to do paper in the future?
We're planning to. In fact, we're moving away from the digital platform that we used during COVID.
Okay.
And this is a good indicator that people want that.
Okay.
Just a comment to add to your comments. Coming in, I ran into a fellow teacher, and she just wanted to offer kudos to Chris Jackson for a wonderful tour that he gave to adult special needs patrons. So they were very impressed and learned quite a bit. So thank you to him and his talents there. All right. Next, we'll move on to old business. And the first item is an update on the Southwest Branch from Greer.
Not a whole lot to report this month. We do have steel installation, which is continuing, as well as some concrete slabs going in for the first time. Utility line excavation has begun, and this includes boring beneath Gordon Pike for the 6-inch fire hydrant lines. As part of that work, we have hit some rock during the excavation process, and we're currently awaiting the total amount of cubic rock and related costs. And as I've said before, we do not expect this to be anything close to the surprise we got from the previous excavation bill, but there is going to be something coming in the form of a change order soon. Site utility installation has also begun in parts, and we are now discussing a schedule of potential site visits for staff, trustees, friends of the library, and other groups, which could begin as early as December or January. Happy to answer any questions.
It's exciting.
Yes.
So what is the guesstimation of completion?
You mean opening or substantial completion? We still expect to open mid-May.
Okay, that
But
was
the
my
building will
question.
be completed closer to late March, early April, and then we'll have a lot of time to move things in
Okay.
and get things set up and
Great.
prepare staff and so on.
So mid-May.
Mid-May.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I drove my daughter out there. She's visiting from Japan, and she thinks it's a very exciting time, and she looks forward to watching it online to see the progress.
Excellent. Yeah, if you go out to the site and you stand at sort of the mouth of the drive where you can see east pretty clearly, now that we have a roof line there, you'll notice that the roof line is just beneath the canopy
Yeah.
of the forest. So it fits perfectly right in that spot. It's really remarkable.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, because she had asked a question, I thought, well, I'll ask you. Is there going to be like a trail or a path from the Bachelor Middle School to the library?
We are working on that very thing.
Yeah,
We
because they'll
have-
make the trail.
We have a proposal for it. So there are 3 trails that cut across the forest, which intersect with the large one in the center. And there's one in particular we would like to pursue and create something like a nature trail. We're talking with a number of people about how we might do that and connect it to the amphitheater on the east side of the site. So that's something we're looking at, yeah.
Might be an idea for an Eagle Scout project.
Mm-hmm, yeah, that's true.
All right, well, thank you for that update. Next, we have a recommendation for proposal for our compensation study. Do I have a motion to approve this proposal?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we will hear from Greer to describe this proposal.
Okay. Following last month's approval of the request for proposals, we shared this RFP with 4 preferred vendors. These are companies who provide compensation study and consultation services specific to public libraries, not-for-profit organizations, schools, and government entities. In response, we received 2 proposals, one from Purple Inc. and one from NFP. Both of these proposals satisfied our criteria for looking at local market data as well as peer libraries and organizations, and for including MCPL staff input in the process, for completing the study by the end of the calendar year, and for remaining within our budget. After review of these 2 proposals, we recommend accepting the NFP proposal. Theirs was very detailed in terms of describing the entire process, and they work with numerous public libraries. NFP also stresses the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in their company mission and approach to providing compensation study services. They even won a 5-star DEI award last year for their work. So if you vote to accept the NFP proposal, we will begin coordinating the compensation study immediately. And Kyle, Becky, and Gary and I are all here tonight to answer any questions you may have.
What would the timeline be for this? When would they start, and how long would it take them?
Roughly a couple of months. We would expect to have all of our data in the form of a report by December 1st, give or take, and then we would take that and do a review and have conversations with you all and with staff and figure out what we want to do. It could go faster than that. You know, they have a pretty succinct way of doing this kind of work. They use a lot of templates. They have a lot of market data at their disposal already. But to be safe, we would say, hopefully by the beginning of December, we would have the study completed.
And because I missed last month, what are we hoping to find out?
We're hoping to find out what comparable positions pay to
Okay.
to our positions at the library, both across the peer library market and somewhat in the Bloomington and Monroe County market, which is not going to be peer libraries, but maybe peer organizations or just comparable positions within the market in general. Because our biggest question is, given the cost of living challenges in Bloomington, what can we and should we do with our compensation plan to remain competitive or become more competitive? And that's going to take some local analysis as well.
Okay, thank you.
How many unique positions are we going to ask them to evaluate? Do you have that number in mind?
Kyle, do you want to speak to that? It's in the 50s, but I'm not sure we're going to do all of them, so.
We actually have fixed We actually have 56 titles. They quoted us for 30. We realized that there's a couple of things we need to discuss, so that might alter the total cost of this slightly at our request. But it'll look like we're probably going to be looking at 36 titles or something like that. Many of the, and we're basing things based on the job description. Remember, titles can be all over the place. So it's really based on the level of responsibilities and the job description rather than a title.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. All those in favor of approving the proposal to have NFP conduct our compensation study signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, next we're going to hear from Gary regarding our fiscal year 2023 draft budget. We are approving the public notice for next month for the notice to taxpayers regarding the budget. So do I have a motion to approve the notice to taxpayers for the approval of the budget?
Second.
Okay.
Last month, we went over the first draft of the 2023 budget. We didn't know how much the assessed value figure would increase in 2023 until this month. So for 2022, the assessed value figure, which is all the taxable residential property and business property in the county, the figure for 2022 was about $8.4 billion. So last month we were wondering if it might reach $9 billion this month or this year for the 2023 year, and it did. It went up to $9.9 billion. So that's a huge increase. It's 18%, and so the property tax that the library receives as revenue will increase by 5% next year. 5% is the growth quotient. So if the assessed value is going up 18% and the property tax revenue is going up 5%, the result is that the tax rate is going to be driven down. So the library tax rate currently for 2022 is 9.25 cents per $100 of assessed value. And so in 2023, it'll drop to 8.38 cents. So tonight I'm requesting approval to take the next step in the budget process, which is posting the public notice for the budget. The public notice for the 2023 budget is on page 90 in the packet. The notice provides the public hearing date and time, which will be at the September board meeting. And it provides the adoption meeting information. So the adoption meeting for the budget will be at the October board meeting. And then the notice also shows the 2023 estimated tax levy, which is about $8.27 million. And then it shows the estimated spending total for 2023, which is about $12.9 million. So at this point, I'd open it up to any questions.
Just because I don't have it here in front of me, what was the budget estimate for last year? What was the budget estimate for last year? So this year's 12,886,224.
Yeah.
Last year was.
So last year, It's in here somewhere.
Sorry.
It's all right. Well, I know the total spending went up by 5% this year, which is the growth quotient.
Okay. So it would just be 5%
and
lower
and-
then.
I think I found it.
I could do the math on my phone.
Yeah, this has last year's tax levy on it. I was looking at the notice. It's got last year's tax levy, but it doesn't have last year's budget estimate. But I can tell you that this year, the 12.9 million, so it basically is last year's figure plus the growth quotient, which is plus 5%. Pardon?
I'm not doing that in my head.
Any other questions?
So Gary, were you looking for the total spending budget? Is that what you were looking for 2022?
Yeah, I just wanted to compare
Okay.
the two numbers. And I know it's a 5%.
Well, the
difference,
total
but-
spending budget for 2023 proposes the $12,886,224. And last year for 2022, and this is on page 79, was $12,272 and $12,272, sorry, it's been a long week, $12,272,959. Does that sound about right? If I'm
Sounds
looking-
about right.
All right.
Okay.
Mhm.
There it was, right in front.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions for Gary? Okay, then do we, all those in favor of approving the posting of the public notice for the budget for the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, thank you, Gary. And next will be new business. And so the first item under new business is the fiscal year 2023 additional appropriations. And do we have a motion to approve those additional appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and I think Gary's going to explain that also.
Pardon?
Are you explaining the
Yes,
2023? Yep, additional
So
appropriations.
what we are really approving tonight is the public notice on this additional appropriation. And then at the September meeting, after the public hearing, there will be a resolution to sign, and that's when you'll officially pass So another way to describe an additional appropriation would be to call it a request to spend more money than we originally budgeted. So this request to spend more money has to go through an approval process that includes a public hearing and approval at a county council meeting. The reason for the request to spend more money is related to paying for construction of the new Southwest branch that is in process. So when the 2022 budget was prepared, we set the combined spending in all the funds to the maximum level that's possible. So for 2022, the combined maximum percentage increase in the spending budget for the operating fund, debt fund, rainy day fund, and LRF fund, that increase was 4.3%, which was the growth quotient. So the maximum increase with that 4.3% limit would just cover normal operational costs. And so we could not put the amount of money, the $6 million that we would be spending out of LRF and rainy day, we couldn't put that in the budget. We knew we were going to do an additional appropriation when it came time to pull that out and use it. So that's what we're doing now. The funds for branch construction were accumulated over several years when operating costs for the library was less than total revenue for the library. Or in other words, the operating surplus over several years was saved and put in the rainy day and LURF fund, and now we need to withdraw approximately $6 million to pay for the branch construction. So tonight we're asking the board to approve the public notice for this request to spend more money. And the notice is on page 91 in the packet. The notice provides information to the public about the amount of the request. It also provides information about the date and time of the public hearing, which will be next month at the board meeting. So taxpayers may come to the meeting and share their comments on the additional appropriation request. And then after the hearing, the resolution related to this request can be signed by the board. So with the public hearing and approved resolution completed, we'll then have what is necessary to go to the county council in October and ask for their approval. So are there any questions on this additional appropriation?
I just want to make clear that this is money, I mean, I know this, but for the television audience, this is money that we have saved, that is our money, the library's money, the taxpayers' library's money that we're just asking to use.
Yes. So we don't have to raise a tax.
We don't have to raise a tax, we
come
don't
up
have
with
to
this
do a
money.
bond. This is money that's been saved over the years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Partly for this purpose.
Yes,
Right,
partly
so
for this
that's
purpose,
for this
absolutely.
purpose.
Yes, yes.
Are there any other questions? Okay, prior to voting, I'm just going to amend my motion since I made the wrong motion. So do we have a motion to approve the notice to taxpayers for the additional appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Now, if we don't have any more questions or discussions, we'll vote. So do we have, so all those in favor of approving the notice to taxpayers of additional appropriations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, next, we are going to look at the updated, let me get to the right spot here. The labor management agreement between the Board of Trustees and the employee union. So this is just an updated with some updated language, things to be looked at. So do we have a motion to approve the new labor management agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so Kyle's going to explain the changes to this agreement.
Hello. I want to say that the Labor Management Group worked very hard on this and I think made a very nice improvement to our document. We respectfully submit the following changes to the joint submission agreement of the Monroe County Public Library Management and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO Local 2802, to the MCPL Board of Trustees for approval. The primary change was an improvement in understanding of how things progressed when we were talking about counseling. On page 97, we added a word that included officially to the definition of managerial employee. That was just a clarification. On page 104, Article 2, Union Recognition and Representation, we added a sentence, a request for counseling may also be initiated by a staff member and is considered a non-formal opportunity for learning and growth. We thought this was a very positive addition and is meant to encourage communication between managers and the employees. As part of this review, we decided that Article 8B, that we would add the entire verbiage that is in the MCPL policy manual into the agreement for discipline and discipline procedures. This also included adding the word documented to a verbal warning, because it confused people that we would write up a piece of paper for a verbal warning. It's now a documented verbal warning. And we did the same for the written warning, of course. The other addition to this is the signature page, approved by all of the Labor Management Committee members, which included Levi, I mess up Levi, not your last name, okay. Levi Gronwald, Macklin Rose, Krista Souter, they're all here today. Becky Throckmorton, myself, Kyle Wickemeyer Hardy, and Josh Wolf, who's on vacation right now. He's absent, but he was much part of this process. And then in addition, we decided to update the MCPL Policy Manual, Policy 6.8 and 6.09, adding the same sentence about counseling and the word documented. So I wanted to thank the committee because this is my 5th time around, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what can we possibly do to make this better? Well, we did. And I really appreciate the hard work of this committee and bring this to you for approval.
I will echo the thanks to you. I know this is tedious and hard work to go through this kind of language and thoughtfulness, so thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Do I have all those in favor of approving the labor management agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you again, Kyle, for your hard work, and to the union representatives also for their hard work. Next on the agenda is just an update from a discussion we had started in January on the possibility of creating a naming policy. So we're going to turn it over to Greer for that.
Thank you. So what we want to do, because we last looked at this draft policy back in January and haven't really discussed it since, but you know there's a lot going on surrounding the Southwest branch and thinking about future enhancements and improvements to our facilities, is to go back to this policy and see if we have any further thoughts or questions or further discussion about what this means in terms of taking a step into having a naming policy for potential donations that we would say are sizable and may come with a request for naming in some form associated with that donation. There are a couple of pieces in that draft policy that we still need to work out, such as determining what the supporting documentation we would require of any potential donor who may be seeking a naming opportunity, and identifying what standard legal agreements between the donor and the MCPL Board of Trustees would look like. These are things that we can work out with our legal team. But we wanted to, rather than bring the draft policy back for final approval, just bring it back up, keep it in our minds, and see if there's any other discussion we want to have, and then look at going back in September with a final version of the policy and moving forward.
My view is not popular, but we're a public library, and I know it is the thing to do now to name things for people that donate money. I know that's what everyone's doing now, and I just disagree. That's respectfully spoken.
Respectfully, I'd like to say that there's been a traditional history in Monroe County, especially in MCCSE, that many of the schools have been named after people because they've given money. The Lester Smith Auditorium at IU, or at Bloomington North, was named after the people who gave land so that we could build north. So there's a precedent that's been historically established. So I just wanted to clarify that too. It's not something new that we're doing.
I think also, too, that sometimes things are named in honor of people, so it's not even necessarily to name it after somebody who's given money. Obviously, someone's given money, but to do that in honor of someone else, not necessarily themselves. We had some friends who, after a long service with the Bloomington Youth Baseball League, had a field named after him. It had nothing to do with, money, but it was an honor for him to show, over 30 years of work for that committee. So I think there's other opportunities too that we can recognize people who have contributed a lot to the library and to the Bloomington community.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we do have a policy in place that does address that, just like the other entities and institutions in Monroe County.
And having a policy doesn't necessarily mean we're going to use the policy. It just means we have one.
That is true.
So, any other questions or comments? All right. Then next, we're going to talk about the a board orientation program discussion, and this is just to kind of kick off some ideas. We are in the position that in the next couple of years, we're going to be welcoming several new members. We have a lot of our distinguished, what did you call them, refer them to? No, I'm not going to, I was going to use that word.
Legacy trustees.
There you go. That's the word I was looking for. I just need somebody else who has a better brain working than I do. Legacy trustees who will be leaving us. We have one leaving next year, one leaving the year after that, and one leaving the year after that. So we have new board members who will be joining us. And so we had talked before, kind of kicked around the idea of having some sort of orientation program just to kind of help people understand what it means to be a board member, what goes on in our meetings, what things we decide on, what things we can do in a meeting, what things we can't do in a meeting or outside of a meeting, because those are things I've just kind of learned on the job, and I know that's probably not the best way to do it because I'm sure there's a lot of things I don't know, and just kind of what the responsibilities are for the different officers, things like that. So the idea really we want to just talk about tonight is what should be involved, and we would also do this procedure even for those of us who've been on the board for a while. Everyone would go through it just so we are all on the same page and in agreement with how we conduct ourselves. So I think tonight we were just mostly looking at what should be involved in the orientation program, maybe who should be conducting the orientation program, things like that.
Does Indiana Libraries already have something that exists that
Yeah.
we could attend yearly?
So there are some resources. So the state library has a fair amount of resources that can help us with this. Indiana Library Federation may also be someone we can look to for some help. We may even reach out to some other libraries and other boards, because there's certainly a precedent for this out there. What we wanted to start the conversation with, though, is the idea of having so many legacy trustees means that you all have this experience and you kind of just know this. So it's probably a good place to start in terms of figuring out, well, what are the basics of board onboarding or orientation? What are the things maybe that you wish you had kind of given to you directly when you first joined the board, and some things like that. Our timeline is the other thing to keep in mind. As Chris mentioned, after next year, we're going to start having some board members leave and some others come in. So we've got a little bit of time to put this together, but we also want to kind of test it. And so what you were saying is, if we put together a draft orientation program for board members, then all of you would go through it, so you can say, okay, well, this is something we can put forward, or we need to keep working on it, and we've got plenty of time to do that before we have another new board member join.
I think it's an excellent idea, just to update us on what our legal responsibilities are and what the state statutes in the Indiana Code defines our role as, and that everybody knows that role.
Yeah, I think the one thing is, I know when I began, I was handed a huge binder, here, read this. I guess, so I'm kind of thinking maybe the Cliff Notes version of that, so that way at least the new members have the basics. Obviously, you have that to refer back to keep yourself abreast of specific items that may not come up on a regular basis, but regularly thinking about regular meetings and things like that. What are things that we feel like a new board member would need to know before actually joining the board? Do we have just kind of make a little list here, or things that you wish you had known, or?
Well, one thing I know, years ago, I think, we lost one board member because they were so overwhelmed by the packet.
Yes.
And so I think how to read the packet and I was too when I joined. I mean, at first I read it and it took me forever.
Yes.
So, and then you get to a point where you learn to read it a little more quickly, and you learn to look for certain things in the financials, and, not have to just go through every line. So I think how to read the packet, because some things you have to study much more carefully than others.
And that's a great suggestion, because I know that is overwhelming, and yes, I agree. I tried to read the whole thing, and I was.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I'm also offer that along very similar lines, maybe just how to prepare for a board meeting on a monthly basis.
Yeah, part of it is reading the packet.
And part of it's reading the
Yes.
packet and just
Yes.
kind of maybe preparing questions or just
Yeah,
kind
I
of.
usually have my little notes
Yeah.
here that I always
Yeah.
keep, and, yeah.
Maybe just an introduction of the officers and what their roles and responsibilities are.
Chris, you had mentioned that giant binder in the public trust, which is a critical piece for all board members to know, but it is lengthy and detailed, and it also doesn't cover everything.
And
It-
I don't think mine's been updated.
Yeah,
If
I'm
there
not
is
sure
an
when,
update.
I'm not sure when the state library last updated, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it would warrant some updates.
I even
but-
have one from the 70s and 80s, so
Yeah.
I haven't
But
compared
even if, when
notes.
you read through it, it doesn't cover all of the nuances
Uh-uh.
of being on a public board and, you know, how you interact with one another in this setting versus privately and all that kind of stuff. So
Yes.
there's a lot of it that's just based on experience and just norms. Yeah.
And I would hope that we would have someone who could, you know, speak to or give a presentation or give a workshop on those legal entities and the state statute code, and where does that line, where's the line drawn? And what do we do and what don't we do?
As far as speaking
Yeah,
to one another and in meetings.
Right.
That's one of the things that I had clarified for me early on, is what my responsibility was in responding to the public.
yes.
Yes.
So I think that that would be an important thing.
Okay, so just in general, communication within the board and with the public, okay?
During meetings or outside of meetings?
I would say both,
Both,
yeah.
yes, yes,
Communication with,
The tricky one is really outside, because during meetings, we have it spelled out in our agenda, like this is how public comment works, and we don't engage and so on, but it's really that outside, but particularly, say, email correspondence or whatever, can be really
Yeah.
tricky. Yeah.
okay, so we're also talking, and so verbal and written forms of communication. Okay.
Do you know, is there anybody that does these presentations or workshops? Maybe talking to Indiana Library Federation or another public library, that maybe they have had a speaker that would come and kind of walk us through that, kind of
Yeah.
digest the,
I can certainly look into that. I had experience with that at a previous job in 2014. We brought someone from the Indiana State Library down to give a presentation to our board members, and we did that in a work session because that's how we would have to do it. But it was pretty useful for them, and so I can start with the state library and see if they're still doing that kind of thing, and we can easily reach out to some peer libraries and see how they're working with their board. Yeah.
I'm just thinking personally too, not being a financial guru, but I know Greer had talked about even doing one of these, with Gary doing a presentation just on how library funding works and what terms like debt levies are and growth quotient, what all those fun terms you throw around that,
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're wrapping up production of that very video this week and next.
so
It's almost
hopefully
done.
we can share that with the board then, so we can also
Yeah.
have a greater depth of knowledge in those areas as well. So when we're approving budgets, we have a little bit better understanding of those items.
I have learned so much from you.
Yes, I have too. And, and still have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Fun about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so just the whole budgetary terminology and how we go about that. Okay. Anything else to add to our list? We got a nice little list here, so,
And we'll continue to discuss this, of course, but it's just kind of a start of.
yeah.
The other piece you mentioned was maybe putting together a working group among the board of folks who are going to carry this forward and bring a draft proposal at some point, and that's something we should talk about too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have members that are interested in just, I think we can do up to 3, right?
Well,
Three? Okay,
yeah.
Tom's saying 3.
3, okay, great,
Tom's saying
good.
3. So, yeah. Okay, so we can have up to 3 members if there's somebody who wants to just kind of spearhead. Me, I can spearhead it, but I don't want to do it by myself. Okay, so,
I'll help as well.
okay, so Speak now.
I'm going to hold up.
Okay, okay. So the group will
That's your
be,
three.
okay.
There we go.
So Chris and Jamie and Kathy. Okay, well, we will get that going. All right. Okay, anything else to add to that? All right, moving on, we have one more action item, and that is the proposed change to the December 2022 board meeting, because at this time, that board meeting is supposed to be on December 21st, which is a little close to the holidays. So we are proposing, for a couple of different reasons, that one being one of them, to change that date to the 14th. So do we have a motion to approve changing the December 2022 board meeting from the 21st to the 14th? Is that right? Do I get my dates right?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Besides the fact that it's not a very convenient date, Greer has, I think, a couple other reasons why we
Well, the
would want to maybe
timing of
move
the
that.
compensation study and our discussions and ultimate proposal for making any changes may be such that it would be advantageous to meet on the 14th rather than the 21st. If we do implement any changes for the start of the 2023 year, that would be the time to do it.
So you have at least a couple weeks
Yes.
to get things
Yes.
in order.
Not saying that that's exactly how the timeline is going to work out, but let's plan for it, and it makes more sense to do it on the
Yeah.
14th than the 21st.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Then would we, if there's a work session, then that would be on the 7th, correct? If-
Correct.
If needed.
If needed, yes.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor of moving the December 2022 board meeting to December 14th instead of the 21st, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, and next we have a department presentation from our Building Services Department, Brian Leibacher. Did I say his name right? Yes. All right.
There we go. Goodness gracious. Okay. My name is Brian. I am the Building Services Manager here at the Monroe County Public Library, which means that I oversee three departments here, including the custodial, maintenance, and security staff. So I'll be talking a little bit about security first and then moving on to building services, which kind of includes some janitorial and maintenance-related items. So as far as security goes, this past year and this year, we recently ended the Bloomington Mass Drive partnership. And that was, they are winding down production of the free masks that they were generating through their volunteers. At the end of this, through our location here, we distributed 36,063 free masks to our community. So those were masks that, again, the Bloomington Mass Drive project had created and then gave to us, and then we made them available to our community. The Bloomington Mass Drive stated that our location was responsible for more than 1/3 of the masks that were distributed from all their other locations. I think they had about 6 or 7 locations total, but out of all the masks that were generated, we were definitely the most popular location for getting those out into the community. So now that doesn't mean that we've stopped providing masks to our community. We've made the commitment that we're going to continue with that. So we've recently purchased generally what I'm calling sanitation stations. And in these then we are providing adult masks, children masks, and then facial tissues as well. And they partner nicely with the touch-free hand sanitizer stations that you can see there that we purchased early on whenever we first reopened our buildings in 2020. Statistically, whenever we look at the number of incidents that we are seeing right now, year-to-date in 2022, whenever we look at that, we're seeing kind of inflated numbers from the past couple of years, but that is to be expected with you know, as we've talked about earlier in this meeting, Greer was talking about, you know, comparing numbers to pre-COVID times. So if we kind of look at pre-COVID times, looking back at our security data, our security statistics, then we're actually finding that they're trending much more comparable. Whenever we look at 2019 compared to 2022, we can see that in 2022, we've had 60 bans thus far, and then in 2019, we had 70 bans. And the early part of this year, kind of one of the numbers that jumps out at me is if you look down at the bottom, the misuse of facilities equipment, that number is where we were putting early on whenever we were still mandating masks early on at the first part of this year. And if we had people that were given multiple warnings about keeping their mask up, putting on masks, things of that nature, and if they weren't and we had to ask them to leave for the day, that's why that number is so large. And since we have stopped that, our numbers have gone way down. And so even whenever you look at there were 10 bans behind already this year, year to date, again, when you factor out a lot of those masking violations, we would probably be closer to 20 bans down for the year. So even though I think our patronage numbers are coming back up, our ban numbers are still staying relatively low, which is nice. On the building services side of things, whenever we look at Ellettsville first, we partnered with the Purdue Cooperative Extension Agency, and we created 2 additional raised flower beds, raised garden beds out there. The 4 in the front were ones that we had installed a few years ago, and then the 2 in the back then were made available through a partnership then with Purdue Cooperative Extension. This photo was taken earlier in the year, and then later in the year, after we had some growth in the flower beds, that's what those look like. Also out at Ellettsville this past year, we completed a sidewalk that connected kind of the older part of the building. This runs along the new, well, I shouldn't say new, but this runs along the adult seating area on the north side of the building, and this connects then the 2 different sidewalks around the building. So now it's possible to traverse this area. Whenever we did that, we took the opportunity to add a trash can, and then we also added a pet waste station area because we found that a lot of our neighbors were walking their pets on our grass, and we're not cleaning up after themselves. So there's a different view of the sidewalk there that kind of goes along the adjacent park there. And then finally, we installed a new camera system, CCTV security system out at Ellettsville, which was much needed and greatly appreciated. Downtown, we helped facilitate a sidewalk repair that was just out here. In this photo, you can see a red circle around part of an older pipe that had to come out because it was broken. And the arrow down there is pointing at the tree roots from the tree in the background that had grown into the pipe and had caused a water line break. That's a storm sewer, a stormwater pipe, and water was coming up onto the sidewalk and then freezing because it was in wintertime. We partnered with the Bloomington Fire Department, and they assisted us in spreading mulch around the building. The spreading of new mulch around the library, that's an annual endeavor. But this was mutually beneficial to both parties as it helped the library reduce labor costs, and it provides the fire department an opportunity for them to meet their service hours and also as well as meet their physical training hours. So this was one of the 2 piles of mulch that we had delivered. So we had 20 yards of mulch delivered. And this is the fire department knocking it out in record time. I think they took care of this in about an hour. And you know, like I said, they are treating this as their physical training time. So they are literally running down the sidewalk with these barrels and wheelbarrows and whatever we could give them. They were taking care of it. So. And the good news is also that the fire department has committed to continuing with this annually into the foreseeable future. So that should lead to future savings for spreading of mulch. In the Level Up area, We accommodated 2 new 3D printers, and we installed some shelves there for people to display their 3D prints that they're proud of. You might remember at one of the last board meetings that I was at, we looked at and the board approved an initiative going forward for a SEAL grant, which was to install a couple thousand new light bulbs inside the library that would all be LEDs. The library had started swapping out light bulbs several years ago, back in around 2017, and we got most of the second floor done at that point in time. This grant allowed us to not only acquire the lights, but also to acquire a contractor to install them much more quickly than what we would be able to. So that initiative is about 99% complete. They installed over 2,100 LED lights, like what you're seeing in this room here. And so we've provided them with a punch list of just a few more lights that were overlooked in the process, and so they will be scheduling with that soon to complete the work to 100%. In our initiative to go touch-free, we've installed 30 hand sanitizer dispensers, 27 paper towel dispensers, and 39 soap dispensers that are all touch-free. So you don't have to physically push anything to get soap or to get hand sanitizer or twist anything or crank anything to get paper towel. So these are all touch-free things, so that whether it's this pandemic or the next one that comes along, hopefully we'll be ahead of the game. A lot of these things were very hard to acquire in 2019 and 2020 mainly, when we were looking at getting these. And so now that they are available, we have implemented them around the building. We updated 3 staff lounges in all of our buildings. A lot of this included new paint and new furniture. At our first floor lounge here at our downtown building, we were especially proud of the work that we had done here. I'll give you some kind of before photos of what this lounge looked like. Had an old tube TV, kind of a dated couch, some dated furniture, kind of a long table with 2 chairs that took up a lot of space. And so we updated this to install a countertop with 3 bar stools, a modern hanging TV, some more efficient seating, and then we moved a few things around to accommodate some things like a water boiler, a toaster, and a microwave as well. So those were some updates there. If that countertop is looking somewhat familiar to you, part of this endeavor, then we refurbished an existing countertop that we had up in our Vital area. So rather than go out and purchase a new one, we used this old countertop, which was in great shape, and we took this opportunity then to spruce up part of the Vital area then with some new shelving and some soft seating. One of the other things that we were particularly proud of is we renovated a previous room that wasn't utilized too heavily, and we created a bike and board commuter room. So we purchased a bike hanging system, and this is kind of a happy place, I guess, for the library to be. We've actually gotten so much use out of this room, we're having to look at alternative methods because our bike commutership, I would say, has probably quadrupled at this point in time. And we do have people that commute to work on skateboards as well. Yeah. In the teen office area, we took out some shelves, and we installed, at their request, some cabinets and a countertop that they were interested in for storage. As the Monroe County Public Library has completed and implemented its continuous improvement plan, we've relocated and renovated about 10 offices for different staff members who relocated to be closer to their department and to their direct reports. And again, I won't show you pictures of all of those, But this is just kind of an example of one older office that then is down in one of our new departments in organizational development that was created as part of the continuous improvement process. And then this office houses two new staff members, or I should say 2 new staff positions that previously did not exist before the continuous improvement process. So again, just another example of how we're utilizing existing spaces in an efficient manner. We partnered with the Friends of the Library to transform meeting rooms 1B and C, which are these rooms, into the Our Voice exhibit and activity area. So if you had a chance to come down and visit that, the room looked drastically different. And so we worked with the Friends of the Library to get all this furniture in place, hang all the lights then that were on the wall. And then we created a custom frame for their word wall. Over the past couple years, we've been swapping out water fountains here at our downtown location with ones that have bottle fillers on them. Most of the bottle fillers have a counter on them to kind of give you an idea as you fill up a reusable water bottle, maybe an idea of how many by doing that, then you've used one less like plastic water bottle. And so as of our count here recently, we have saved over 79,000 plastic water bottles from going into landfills or having to be recycled just by installing those. Next year, we were going to start on the Ellettsville branch location in installing those new water fountains out there with the bottle fillers, but a current need for repair has expedited this process, and we're going to be replacing the first one here shortly. So things that we've got in progress, part of the library has a 30-year life cycle replacement and preventative maintenance plan. One of the major projects that's on our list this year is replacing a motor in one of our air handlers. That is ongoing. The motor has been purchased and has arrived, and we're going to wait for a little bit more seasonable weather before we shut down part of our HVAC system to install that. We've got a couple more office renovations and one more relocation to complete. And then the last thing that we've kind of been helping out with that is ongoing right now is down in our Tween area. The library has partnered with a local artist to create a large mural. And so part of this existing wall previously had a bunch of cork, like fake cork on it, that was kind of a wallpaper for hanging art. And we removed that, and we facilitated some new drywall installation on that. These walls have been primed. And so again, we've partnered with a local artist who, I'm not going to spoil it, but the mural is going to be out of this world. So that's all I can say because I've been sworn to secrecy. Any questions for me?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned going touch-free. As repairs are needed in the restrooms, we'll be doing the faucets also as touch-free?
We certainly have that option. One of our vendors is very interested, as you can imagine, in selling us a bunch of touch-free devices for our bathrooms, and so we are going to be looking at the cost of that. But that is certainly a way that we could go, not only with our faucets, but also with our toilets as well. So many of those are already in place at our Ellettsville location. Whenever we did our remodel out there and our addition, then a lot of the toilets and the sinks out there are already touch-free.
Is there a sense of the rate of dysfunction of those touch things?
Not yet. We're still kind of early on in our it's early on in the honeymoon period with those. So the downside is that they do require batteries, and so that is the downside to those. I've heard that some places will use, there are, I guess, some solar ones that can prevent that. The downside is, in most of our restrooms, we have the light sensors as well, so that the lights turn off when there's no activity in there. And so then that diminishes the use of the solar ones because there isn't any light that's powering those devices then, so. Yes.
Where exactly is this room, and when should we watch for the big surprise?
You know, so when I spoke to the artist earlier today, they were supposed to be getting their paint today or tomorrow, if it all came in. And so what you can't see here are a bunch of pencil marks that the artist has drawn their sketch already. It's actually 3 walls. There is a 3rd wall that kind of goes off this direction that you can't see, but the sketching is already done, and so I believe the painting is going to start either this week or early next week. So check in.
It's in the children's.
Oh yeah, I'm
department.
sorry.
is?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Green space near the graphic novels.
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for that update. Okay. Anything else? All right. It is now time in our meeting for public comment. Do we have any members of the public that would like to step forward to address the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.